Welcome to Ecosystems Model Part 5, Cycles of Matter in an Ecosystem. Be sure you have your notebook and your flowchart. In this PowerPoint, we will be focusing on the question, how is the flow of energy within food webs interconnected with the cycling of matter? To address this question, we will be looking at the importance of the water cycle, nitrogen cycle, and carbon cycle in an ecosystem. Locate your ecosystem flowchart. In the oval labeled number 3, copy the appropriate heading. As we go through this PowerPoint, we will be discussing the importance of the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. In your notebook, copy the following questions in Cornell Note style if you prefer. At the conclusion of this PowerPoint, please show your teacher your response to these questions. The nitrogen cycle moves nitrogen in various forms between the air, organisms, and land. Nitrogen is very important because it is essential in the making of amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, and nucleic acids, including DNA and RNA. Plants also need nitrogen in the making of chlorophyll, which is essential for photosynthesis. Nitrogen gas, being the most abundant gas in the atmosphere, is not usable to plants or animals in its current form. Therefore, nitrification must occur. That is, the fixing of nitrogen gas so that it can be used by plants or animals. There are two ways in which this can occur, through lightning or bacteria. This bacteria is located in the roots of legume plants such as soybeans, peanuts, and peas. As indicated earlier, nitrogen fixing can occur two ways, one of which is by lightning. The tremendous amount of energy that lightning generates breaks the nitrogen molecules apart that are in the air and allows these atoms to combine with oxygen as well as water vapors that are in the air to form nitrates. These nitrates then are carried to the earth's soil and absorbed by the roots of plants. We've already established that nitrification, which is nitrogen fixing, can occur two ways, one of which is through lightning, but the most common way is through nitrogen in the atmosphere coming in contact with bacteria located in the plant roots and soil, where it will convert this nitrogen into ammonia, then nitrates. In this form, the nitrogen can be taken into the plant as nutrients. Once in the food web, consumers will eat the producers, and when the producers as well as the consumers die or deposit waste materials, decomposers break these organisms down and return the nitrogen to the soil. Once in the soil, bacteria releases the nitrogen back into the air through a process called denitrification. And again, that is when nitrate is converted back into nitrogen gas and then it is released back into the air. And that is basically the nitrogen cycle. Let's take a closer look at the nitrogen cycle. Step 1. Nitrogen gas in the atmosphere comes in contact with special bacteria located in the roots of lagoon plants. These nitrogen-fixing bacteria converts the nitrogen gas to ammonia. Then the ammonia is further converted to the nutrient nitrate. This is the form in which plants are able to take the nitrogen in as a nutrient. At this point, the nitrogen enters the food web. Not all of the nitrate that is converted by the nitrogen-fixing bacteria is absorbed by the plants. Some of the nitrogen is converted back into nitrogen, some of the nitrates.
Hey, look at those weird bumps on the roots of that soybean plant. Bet you can't guess what's inside. Bacteria. Bacteria? The stuff that makes you sick? Yuck. Hey, not all bacteria is bad. In fact, we couldn't live without the bacteria in these little nodules. Neither can animals or plants. These little things help keep us alive? How? Turns out they're VIPs in the nitrogen cycle, the endless process where nitrogen moves back and forth between living things like plants and animals and non-living things. Like air, water, and soil? You got it! Okay, so all living things need nitrogen to survive, and there's lots of it in the air. Can't we just breathe in the nitrogen we need? Nope. Our bodies can't use it as a gas, and neither can plants. That's where our bacteria buddies come in. Do they do something to the nitrogen? Yeah. First, nitrogen gas travels from the air to the soil and right into those nodule thingies. Where the bacteria are waiting? Yep. The bacteria turn the nitrogen gas into ammonia, like the household cleaner. Cool. Then plants use the ammonia? You'd think, huh? But most plants can't. It's pretty toxic. That's where other bacteria come in. The ammonia leaves the nodules, and then bacteria in the soil turn it into nitrites. But plants still can't use the nitrites, so different bacteria turn the nitrites into nitrates. The whole process is called nitrification. Nitrification. Sounds royal. We dub these Sir Nitrates. Nitrates do play a royal role. Plants use them to create the proteins they need to live and grow, and animals do the same thing. So if plants get nitrates from the soil, how do animals and people get them? By eating plants. And animals that don't eat plants eat other animals that eat plants. How carnivorous. What about the rest of the cycle? How do the nitrates turn back into nitrogen gas? Plants and animals die, and animals excrete waste. A lovely thought. Everything decays and breaks down, thanks to special bacteria called decomposers, which release nitrogen back into the cycle. They reverse the whole process. And the gas ends up back in the air? Most of it does, and the whole cycle repeats. I think I've got it. Nitrogen is a gas in the air. Then bacteria in plant nodules and in the soil change it into nitrates. Next, plants and animals use the nitrates to make proteins they need to grow. And last of all, bacteria change the nitrates from waste and dead matter back into nitrogen gas. And the cycle starts all over again. Perfect! But what's not so perfect is that people are doing things that upset the cycle, like driving too many cars. That builds up nitrogen in the air and can cause smog or acid rain. Kinda scary since we're breathing that air. Can we help? Well, we can start by riding our bikes more. Now that's what I call getting to the root of the problem. I'm with you all the way.
Nitrogen cycle overview. Most of the nitrogen cycle takes place underground. Bacteria drives this cycle. Bacteria converts gaseous nitrogen into ammonia, then nitrate, through a process called nitrification, which is known as nitrogen fixing. Once in the form of a nitrate, Nitrogen is used by plants and passed on in the food web. Denitrifying bacteria converts the remaining nitrate into nitrogen gas that is returned to the atmosphere. A cycle that we will briefly discuss is the phosphorus cycle. This cycle describes the movement of phosphorus between the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and biosphere. Mainly, this cycle takes place in rocks, soil, water, and living things. Phosphorus is critical because it plays an important role in cell development, as well as ATP, DNA, and lipids. Too little phosphorus in the soil can yield in decreased crop production. Phosphorus is released in the environment through the erosion of rocks. It is then distributed in soil and water. Plants absorb the phosphorus from the soil and then consumers eat the plants. Once plants and animals die and decompose, the phosphorus is then returned to the soil. The overproduction of phosphorus in the environment is generally due to mining and agricultural or farming activities.
The phosphorus cycle describes the slow process whereby phosphates move between the land, water, and Earth's interior. The largest store of phosphorus is in sedimentary rock. Over long periods of time, rainfall and wind gradually weather and erode phosphates from rock and into the soil. On land, plants take up or assimilate phosphates from the soil. Animals eat plants and in doing so absorb phosphates. Other animals eat those animals and the consumed phosphates are transferred through the food chain and are released back into the soil through excretion and when animals die through decomposition. Phosphorus binds to soil particles, leaches through watersheds, and finally settles on lake bottoms and ocean floors. In water, aquatic plants take up phosphates, fish eat the plants, are eaten by larger fish and mammals, moving phosphates through the food chain. Through excretion and as aquatic plants and animals die, phosphates settle on lake and ocean floors and are returned to the soil through sedimentation. In time, ocean floors harden into sedimentary rock and are moved to land through geological uplift. Drastically more phosphorus is making its way to freshwater sources and oceans as commercial agriculture relies heavily on phosphorus-rich fertilizers that in turn disrupt the natural flux of ecosystem processes.
Copy these questions in your notebook. Once you have finished the PowerPoint and answered all the questions, show them to your teacher. We will discuss the oxygen cycle because it ties in with concepts that we discussed earlier. So, the oxygen cycle is the movement of oxygen within the air, water, living material, and the Earth's crust. Photosynthesis plays a vital part in the oxygen cycle. Photosynthesis is the chemical reaction wherein plants use water and carbon dioxide to convert the sun's energy into chemical energy that is stored in glucose. This process takes place in the chloroplast. As we can see from the general formula of photosynthesis, plants take in oxygen in the form of carbon dioxide and water. They release oxygen in the form of sugar and the oxygen gas. So, plants take in carbon dioxide and water as the reactants, and they give off sugar and oxygen as the product. Cellular respiration is the second component that is very important to the oxygen cycle. This is the process by which glucose reacting with oxygen releases energy to the cells in the usable form of ATP for life processes such as digestion, respiration, circulation. This process takes place in the mitochondria. As you can see in the general formula for cellular respiration, oxygen is taken in by animals in the form of glucose and the gas form of oxygen. Oxygen is then released into the atmosphere or the environment in the form of carbon dioxide and water. So, in short, animals take in oxygen in the form of glucose and gas, and it gives off oxygen in the form of water and carbon dioxide. This is the complete reverse of photosynthesis. In review, the oxygen cycles. Plants make food by photosynthesis. In doing so, they take in oxygen in the form of carbon dioxide and water to release or make the gas form of oxygen and glucose, which also contains oxygen. Animals breathe in the gas form of oxygen and release oxygen in the form of carbon dioxide and water.